dispelling over 2,300 years worth of misinterpretations. Warning, this information is intended for persons seeking truth in a world full of lies. Your discretion is advised. First, let's listen to the claims.
Those who were educated about Columbus's voyage to the New World can often recall a few basic details from their days in school. Apart from the often repeated line, "In 1492, Columbus sailed the ocean blue," a majority might recall that Columbus wanted to prove the rest of the world wrong in assuming a flat Earth. But just a minute, is that bit of knowledge founded in reality? A look at lunar eclipses enlightens us with the real history. Lunar eclipses occur when the Earth, Sun, and Moon align, causing the Earth's shadow to block the light from the Moon. The ancient Greeks observed this shadow, and Aristotle, living in the 4th century BC, noted that while some of his contemporaries believed in a flat Earth, lunar eclipses held one of the keys to showing its true shape. Either then the Earth is spherical, or it is at least naturally spherical. The evidence of the senses further corroborates this. As it is, the shapes which the Moon itself each month shows are of every kind, straight, gibbous, and concave. But in eclipses, the outline is always curved. And since it is the inner position of the Earth that makes the eclipse, the form of this line will be caused by the form of the Earth's surface, which is therefore spherical.
Greek philosopher and scientist Aristotle, 384 to 322 BC, proved that the Earth is round by carefully observing lunar eclipses. The shadow that Earth casts on the Moon during a lunar eclipse, Aristotle noticed, was always curved, something only a sphere will do. It occurs to me that the phrase "proved" may have had a different meaning 2,300 years ago. But I'm not here to talk about language or mistranslation of ancient texts. It's the actual observations that I'm here to present. This is what you would expect to see, the shadow on the bottom. I would call this a typical lunar eclipse. Notice the Earth causing the shadow. It'd be easy to understand how Earth could cause this. This is what you would expect to see again. Shadow on the bottom of the Moon. Easily understandable. So what's the problem? The problem is, how can Earth be causing this shadow? Notice the illuminated part of the Moon is on the bottom of the Moon, the part of the Moon that's farthest from the Sun. Is the Earth really between the Sun and the Moon? How is this shadow possible when the Sun is rising from behind? This is called a selenial and lunar eclipse. It's very rare. It only occurs 10% of the time. What causes the lunar eclipse? Notice it's getting brighter because the Sun is rising from behind.
Just a quick video today, the day after a lunar eclipse on January 31, 2018. A Facebook friend of mine, Ron Hagberg, who resides in Florida, captured both video and photographic evidence last night of the lunar eclipse that, in my opinion, blows the globe model of the Earth out of the water. At least the lie we are fed that a lunar eclipse is caused by the Earth's shadow being visible on the Moon. Now, we're all told that the phenomenon of a lunar eclipse happens when the Sun, the Earth, and the Moon are all lined up, and the Earth's shadow caused by the Sun's light is visible on the Moon, so the darkened area we see is supposedly the shadow and the quote-unquote curve of the Earth. But what Mr. Hagberg documented last night, as you can see here, is the alleged shadow of the Earth completely upside down from where it should be on the globe model. If the darkening area of the moon is believed to be the Earth's shadow, then why isn't the shadow appearing on the other side, or the bottom of the moon? You can view all of Mr. Hagberg's work on Facebook. He's made it public so all can view it and review it and consider it and share it, etc. The link is in the video's description. He told me this afternoon his video and pictures are going viral, and he's been asked by many if they can share it. He graciously allowed me to share them here with you.
Now, in Ron's video, you can see that the sun was starting to come up, and the moon was starting to go off into the distance, and yet the one thing that stood out most of all is the shadow, and how the shadow was coming from the top of the moon. What we observed here is the total opposite of what was supposed to be happening. You see, if the sun were being blocked by the curvature of the Earth, then the shadow should have been on the lower part of the moon, and the light from the sun, or the lit part of the moon, should have been at the top where the shadow is. It's completely opposite of what we should see according to the heliocentric model and what we've been told.
Now let's take a look. The phony baloney ball Earth, and this is a supposed lunar eclipse with this model. As you can see, the top portion of the moon should be illuminated and the bottom portion should be darkened. Just another image just representing the supposed orbit of the moon around the so-called ball Earth. Now, take a look here. Again, the top portion should be illuminated, the bottom portion darkened. At this angle, from this perspective, again, the bottom portion should be darkened, the top should be illuminated. Now let's look at this video. Actually, I have two videos that I want to show recorded the same day from two separate locations, two different states. One from New Mexico and another from Illinois. First, let's take a look at the footage right here from just north of Santa Fe, New Mexico, looking towards Los Alamos. For a better perspective, let's take a look here at the map. Again, just for reference for Santa Fe, so again, just north, so it's the angle you're looking at right here. And as you can see, the upload date was December 10th, 2011. Okay, let's take a look at the actual footage itself. Start from the very start, from the very beginning. Talks about the phenomenon of this eclipse. It's called the Selenian event. Now let's take a look. Look at this part right here. Now take a look at this time lapse of this moon, where both the sun, again, this is the sunrise, the sun and the moon are both above the horizon. Look at the top portion of the moon. It's darkened. Again, going back, put pause here for a second. Going back to this model, top portion should be illuminated, of course, and the bottom portion darkened, and you're not getting that. You're getting the exact opposite. Okay? Let me play this again so you understand what's taking place here. So this definitely proves this is not caused by the so-called ball Earth. See this? It's clear as day. For all those people saying the lunar eclipse debunks the flat Earth, you're completely wrong. I'm going to let this video play once again. Just look at all this footage and realize the most important aspect of this is during the sunrise. Okay? And there you go. Now, taking a look here, I showed this before with this guy here in Illinois. Okay, take a look at this footage once again. Basically the same exact thing. Like I said, the same exact day. And they get the same exact results.
6:30 in the morning. It's about 18 degrees out here, and we're standing on top of Cahokia Mounds, just east of St. Louis. Behind me is a full moon, which will soon be going into a full lunar eclipse as it sets, kind of a rare experience, while at the same time behind us, the sun is already beginning to rise. So it's going to be a very interesting and beautiful experience. So it's about 6:55, and as you can see, we're getting a little bit brighter out here. You can see the shadow creeping across the moon. It's a little hard to see, I'm sure, in the camera, but here you can see nice and clearly. It's about a third of the way covered. The moon's starting to turn nice and orange. Over my right shoulder, you can see downtown St. Louis in the nice early morning sun, which is getting very bright. The eastern horizon behind us. Yeah, we can see it's practically day here yet. We still have the moon out. It is slowly eclipsing. And it's still cold. Okay, so it's now about 7:04 a.m. and over my shoulder you probably cannot see anything, but through the stacks of the refinery back there, we can just barely make out a little bit of the moon left. It's about 2/3 the way covered with Earth shadow, and it's turning a sort of pale orange, pinkish color. But with the bright morning sun coming up, there's not enough contrast to be able to see the moon there. We can still see it just a little bit. What I find very interesting is I was expecting the shadow to come upward across the moon as it would go down and it would pass into shadow, and actually it's going the other way around.
And there you go. This is because the indoctrination from the school system. People just blindly accept and believe what the textbooks say. He's just trying to piece it all together. Again, trying to rationalize everything so it fits along with what science says, which is an absolute lie. Again, science book, the school books, the Freemasons that put it all together, it's all about duality, the exact opposite of what we're told. Everything is the exact opposite of the actual truth that we're taught in the school system. Nothing but lies.
Around the Earth, it's moving farther up, even though the sun's light is actually coming from over there. It's actually coming underneath the Earth. So
No, it's not. The sun is not coming. The sunlight is not coming from underneath the Earth. Give me a break. Again, just trying to rationalize why it's not adding up to the science books.
if you imagine, the sun is here, the Earth is here, and the moon is back here, and this light was coming under the Earth.
But how can that be? You just showed yourself the sun is above the horizon. So again, he makes absolutely no sense trying to explain this. Sad. It's very sad how people can't get off the lights. Instead of saying, you know what we were taught doesn't add up, doesn't make sense, what's going on here? They can't do it. Because then you're considered crazy. You can't go there. That's exactly what's taking place.
But the moon must be rotating around even though we're turning, so it looks like the moon is going down. It's kind of an optical illusion. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, an illusion.
So the sun is scheduled to set at 7:08. I'm sorry.
The only illusion is what you're taught in the school system. There you go once again. Top portion is darkened. The bottom portion is illuminated. And with this video clip, again from New Mexico, there's no narration for this video. Can't explain this. Science cannot explain this. Again, let's take a look here at what space.com has to say about this occurring. Space.com's website. Scroll down. See what it says here. This interesting sky watcher should attempt to see the solar eclipse of the moon and the rising sun simultaneously. The little used name for this effect is called selenium, a phenomenon that is celestial geometry says cannot happen. So there you go. They say it cannot happen. Why can it happen? Of course, because we don't live on a ball Earth.
I have also had other folks send me photos, like this one, showing me different angles of the shadow, like on the side of the moon here, which also doesn't work in the heliocentric model.
The explanation of a complete darkening of the surface of the moon, lunar eclipse that is because the Earth is said to be directly between the moon and the sun during the time of the eclipse. On January 31st, Griffith Observatory in Los Angeles, California, did a complete recording of the lunar eclipse going through all its phases. Then they compressed it into a 60-second time lapse. Rather impressive. But towards the end, you'll see that the moon goes over the horizon at an angle. While you're watching the video, for some reason or another, they uploaded it as if you were watching the video straight up. But once it gets over to the horizon, you realize that you were supposed to be watching it like this. Now, let's go ahead and fix the angle and see right about where these shadows are supposed to be falling.
There are also numerous accounts on Facebook of folks experiencing the darkening of the moon with the lunar eclipse last night, with the sun visible above the horizon. Explain that, Globe Earth defenders.
It's a very common belief, misconception, that everybody thought the world was flat until 500 years ago at the time of Columbus.
No chapter of romance equals the interest of the expedition. The most fascinating of the works of fiction which have issued from the modern press have, to my taste, no attraction compared with the pages in which the first voyage of Columbus is described by Robertson, and especially by our own Irving and Prescott, the last two enjoying the advantage over the great Scottish historian of possessing the lately discovered journals and letters of Columbus himself. They looked upon Columbus as we did 30 years ago upon Captain Sims, but the illustrious adventurer persevered. Sorrow and disappointment clouded his spirits, but did not shake his faith nor subdue his will. His well-instructed imagination had taken firm hold of this idea that the earth is a sphere, and it deserves ever to be borne in mind as the most illustrious example of the connection of the scientific theory with great practical results, that the discovery of America, with all its momentous consequences to mankind, is owing to the distinct conception in the mind of Columbus of this single scientific proposition: the terra aqueous earth is a sphere. Traveling on foot, having all of his worldly goods with him, despised by the pretended philosophers, laughed at by the ignorant, and trifled with by the arrogance of ministers and their dependents. But he was independent, at the same time dependent, never compromised himself with the principles, a right with a wrong. Perhaps he lived at that distant period in sight of independence, as near the 4th of July as many in these more favored times. Ultimately, he obtained an interview with the court of Spain, who favored his plans enough to call together the most scientific professors that he might have an opportunity to lay his plans before them. At this time, Spain was at the summit of her greatness, and had her greatest men. When explaining his plans of discovery to the philosophers, and that the earth is a revolving globe which might be traveled round from west to east, "Why," said they, "what a mystical theory, contradicted by every step we take upon this broad, flat earth which we daily tread beneath our feet." To them it was a visionary, a vast nothingness. They came together with doubt in both hands, could not travel out of their old, stratified beliefs. Chapter 5, The Earth is a Globe. The original idea of the Earth as given in the Homeric poems was that of an immense, flat, circular plain around which Oceanus, a mythical river, not the Atlantic, flowed like a vast stream. It was thought to be bounded above by a hollow hemisphere turned downward over it, through and across which the heavenly bodies course for human convenience and pleasure.
Well, it turns out people at least 2,500 years ago knew the world was spherical. Think about that. 2,500 years ago, people knew the world was spherical, and they had different arguments about. One of them is the fact that when you see a lunar eclipse...
Here we go, y'all. Morning of January 31st. It's getting light out, and to the west, we have the moon in a total lunar eclipse. It's blood red. See that? So how can there be a lunar eclipse? How can the Earth be causing that when the sun is up over here? See that? The sunrise. See how it's light over there? That's the sun. So wait, if the sun lights up over here, how can it be going down and around the Earth to then block the moon? Like, that doesn't even make sense. Come on, people. That just seriously debunks the whole heliocentric model right here. Right here. Moon eclipsed, up above the horizon, to the west.
There are also numerous accounts on Facebook of folks experiencing the darkening of the moon with the lunar eclipse last night, with the sun visible above the horizon.
Pretty much destroying that whole idea that the Earth is directly between the moon and the sun. Obviously, that's not the case.
And then you find other people, I'll just mention in passing, Copernicus with the heliocentric theory, popularization of that.
Just tell our people what heliocentric means.
That means the sun is the center and the planets, including the Earth, go around the sun.
Right.
Good point.
Here's a selenium eclipse with the shadow in the typical orientation. This is the type of eclipse NASA will show you as an example of a selenium because of the typical orientation. As you'll notice from this diagram, the shadow should be on the bottom part of the moon. And you'll notice from real world observations that it does occur like this sometimes, but not all the time. Notice the sun is still above the horizon and 180 degrees opposite of the sun is the moon in a lunar eclipse, showing the typical orientation that one might expect during a lunar eclipse.
The only way to overcome this was to make the spheres as flat as possible.
Allow me to now share the information that will close the case forever on the possibility or the falsity of the moon being a sphere. The moon is 100% absolutely not spherical, and any lunar eclipse proves it, and you can prove it too. All you need is a light source and two spheres. On the right, I'll be showing video footage of past lunar eclipses that we are all familiar with. And on the left, I will be showing what a shadow moving over a sphere actually looks like. A lunar eclipse is not, I repeat, is not a shadow of a sphere or anything else circular moving across a spherical object. How do I know? There are 4 critical points of observation everyone should be looking at. And I like to call these the conformation to surface factor, the shadow diffusion factor, the sine wave or S factor, and the reflected light factor. Firstly, I would like to point out the consistency of how a shadow naturally moves along varied surface types. This is the conformation factor. A shadow will conform to any shape that the surface takes, thus, in a way, revealing the true shape of an object. If a shadow moves along something rigid like stairs, it will take the stairs shape, revealing the level differential from step to step. If a shadow moves along a concave object like a bowl, the shadow will stretch and skew, revealing the concavity of the bowl. If a shadow was to move over the surface of a sphere, it would stretch and skew in a spherical manner, wrapping and receding as it bevels and distorts along the sphere's surface. Note that this does not and has never happened on the surface of the moon during an eclipse. Which brings us to our next factor, the shadow diffusion factor. Note, the shadow is more crisp on the edge of the bowl than it is in the lowest portion of the bowl, and sharpens as it rises back up to the edge or the source of the shadow. Note also that on a sphere, the shadow is most diffused or scattered around the edges as the sphere's surface recedes, and it is the most sharp or defined on the closest portion of the sphere. This is because the closer the source of the shadow is to the surface, the more defined its edges. The further the source of the shadow is from the surface, the larger and more faded or diffused it becomes. Another way to say this is if you place an object on a surface with a light source above, the object's shadow will appear most sharp when the object is at rest. But lift the object closer to its light source, and you will see the shadow lose its crisp edges, and dull or fade away, sometimes to the point where little to no shadow remains. This is the shadow diffusion factor, and in conjunction with the first factor, the conformation to the surface factor, the shadow not only rises and falls, stretches and skews with the surface, but also sharpens and dulls. These two factors are almost all we need to find the true topography or shape of the moon. Yet one factor is missing. This is called the sine wave factor, or S factor. Because the moon is said to be a sphere, the shadow that is projected onto the moon should also take on the characteristics of the sphere. This critical factor does not appear on the moon's eclipses whatsoever. The sine wave factor, or the S factor, is what happens as an object, round or straight, spherical or bent, passes over a sphere's surface. As the shadow moves onto a sphere, it is wrapping around its curve. Starting from the outer edge and moving towards the middle, the shadow takes on the spherical contour and bends upward at its height, then falls backwards in a barrel-distorted manner. The shadow will always follow the closest edge due to perspective. The shadow will continue to create the S shape until it reaches the halfway point. As the shadow moves beyond the halfway point, it begins to bevel outward again in a barrel distortion manner. When a shadow moves along a 3D sphere, the center or closest part of the sphere to the observer is the most flat, and the shadow's shape and size the most true to life. The sphere will never be flat, but the bigger the sphere is, the less acute the angle of its curvature. So, because the innermost portion of the sphere is the closest to the observer, the less curvature is observed. However, when we observe any lunar eclipse, there is no wrapping, stretching, skewing, sharpening, or dulling of the shadow. In fact, every single lunar eclipse looks as if there is one flat disk moving across another flat disk. As the circular shadow moves along the moon, it maintains its circular shape the whole way at the same pace. No stretching, no skewing, no sharpening or dulling. Hopefully you all understood that, as it was quite hard for me to put into words. Those three factors are good enough for us to see that the moon is not a sphere, but one factor is needed to realize the moon's surroundings, and that's reflected light. When another object under the same light source is in close proximity of the object in question, i.e. the moon, it should have light bouncing off of the earth and reflecting onto the moon. When another object under the same light source is in close proximity of the object in question, it should have light bouncing off and reflecting onto it. What I mean is this. The closer another object comes to the sphere, the brighter the light it's reflecting will appear. In the made-up heliocentric lie, they tell us that the moon is reflecting the light to the earth. But what about the bigger object, the earth? Does it reflect and bounce light to the moon? It should, but it doesn't. Because if it did, we would then have no new moon phase, and instead more of a dull moon phase or a dim moon phase. Meaning, as the moon wanes to darkness, it should then be illuminated by the earth. We should still be able to see the same face of the moon that we see every day, because the moon is always facing us. However, it should be dimmer and not luminous, because the earth should reflect its massive light towards the dark moon. Especially when the moon is further and closer to the earth on its supposed elliptical path, it should brighten and dim in its new moon phase. I repeat, speaking exclusively from new moon to new moon, the moon itself should still be visible on that new moon phase, transitioning from dim to slightly brighter, back to dim, as the moon moves in its elliptical orbit. The object also should reflect the color of its surface and the color of its light source. A gold chain will reflect gold. A green ball will bounce green light, and its reflection on the object will be green. The sun's light is yellow or warm, while the moon's light is blue and cool. Astronauts say the moon is black and white, whatever that means. But if that means it's a scale of grays running from white to black, then it is impossible for the moon to change the sun's light from a warm color and temperature to a cool color and temperature. Yes, the moon's light is colder than the moon's shade. I can understand the moon cooling down the sun's rays and making it less hot, but in no way is it possible for it to actually make the sun's rays colder than the shade at night. Meaning, if you stepped into the moonlight at night, the temperature of the sun's rays reflecting off the surface of the moon and onto your face, or thermometer, should be greatly reduced, but not colder than if there was no moon at all. When the moon comes out at night, the temperature drops because of the moon's light. This has been confirmed by many experiments using digital thermometers. But staying on course, there is no sign of a reflected light being thrown onto the moon by Earth. What does this mean? This means that the new moon has actually disappeared. While the moon is waxing and waning, we can see the rest of the moon that is not illuminated. However, when there is a new moon, or no sunlight being reflected, we do not see a dim spherical object traversing our sky. In fact, in the daytime, we should still see a dim object traversing the sky, but we have never seen either of these things in our realities. Can you ever remember seeing a dim, non-luminous moon high in the sky at the new moon phase? I repeat, at the new moon phase, not while it's waxing or waning, and not when it's near full. Have you ever seen a dim, non-luminous moon high in the sky at the new moon phase? Now that this information is being brought to light, you will never be able to help but notice something you've never noticed before. That on an eclipse, the shadow has never stretched along the surface of a spherical moon. No stretching, no skewing, no sharpening in or fading away. Not obscured and distorted in sine wave-like motions. No light reflecting onto the moon from Earth. Nothing. Not a single shred of evidence remains that the moon is a spherical body orbiting around or above our Earth. This 100% discounts and debunks any further argument or perspectives that hold to our moon being a sphere in the sky or reflecting the sun's light. This information is in line with the laws of the reflector. The reflector can only reflect light brilliantly if the surface of the reflector is concave, but the outside of the sphere is convex, and convex surfaces only reflect a portion of the light back to the viewer's eye. But a concave surface reaccumulates the spreading light, or reconcentrates the light back to the observer's eye, whereas the convex surface, like the surface of a ball, further scatters the light. If the moon were over 250,000 miles away, then we would only see a portion of the moon, which we would call the hot spot, or the bright spot, or the highlight of the sphere. But there are no hot spots or highlights or bright points on the sphere of the moon indicating the sun's direction. Instead, we have a perfectly evenly lit, luminescent moon that gives us cold blue light. In fact, when we look at a full moon, it appears to be flat because the edges of the moon are just as bright as the center or any other part on a full moon.
Eclipses. This is the globe killer. Diameter of Earth's penumbra or umbra. Let's say it is Earth's umbra we are seeing on the moon. This is the Earth's shadow on the moon, And this is the moon shadow on the Earth. See a problem here? Moon shadow on the Earth during a solar eclipse is only 71 miles wide. But Earth's shadow on the moon perfectly occults the moon during a lunar eclipse? That's Fantasyland Chronicles, folks. If the moon's umbra is 100 miles, then the Earth should be 3.7 times larger, or 370 miles in diameter. But from photo evidence, it is not 370 miles in diameter. In fact, the shadow on the moon is 2.5 times larger than the moon itself. So then globe believers will say, no, we are seeing the penumbra. It's the penumbra, not the umbra. Okay, so let's say it's Earth's penumbra that we are seeing on the moon, because I know you change your model whenever you want. The diameter of the Earth's penumbra is 5,365 miles, or 2.5 times the size of the moon. The diameter of the moon is 2,159 miles. The diameter of the Earth is 7,917.5 miles, or 3.7 times the moon. Yet the diameter of the Earth's penumbra shadow is 5,365 miles, or 2.5 times the size of the moon. Either way you slice it, you lose. If you say it's the umbra, it's way too large. If you say penumbra, it's way too small. The sun eclipse path shows us. On a globe, you notice the shadow, the path of the eclipses are all zigzaggy lines. When you chart them out on the azimuthal equidistant map, it turns into circular eclipse paths. Another anomaly you'll notice is during the January 21st, 2019 lunar eclipse. You can see here the area that's shaded pink was areas that were able to see the lunar eclipse take place, where on the heliocentric model the sun is lighting up half of the globe. This obviously wasn't lighting up half the globe, as the Earth would have to be in between the moon and the sun for these people to witness a lunar eclipse. Did you know that NASA says that the moon glows in the dark? According to this NASA PDF entitled Photon Luminescence of the Moon, says here the photon luminescence or albedo of the lunar surface induced by GCRs and SEPs will be derived here, demonstrating that the moon literally glows in the dark when there is no sunlight or earthshine.
It upsets all our ideas.
There's a lot of controversies regarding solar eclipse on August 21st, 2017 that leads to the ultimate question, is the heliocentric model correct or wrong? In this short video, collaborating with Subianto Sulistiono, a professional doctorate majoring in computer physics, and Najwa Azahra, a medical doctor, founder of Indonesian Flat Earth Community, we will use all scientific data to study the Great American Eclipse. The conclusions are quite devastating. The speed is deceiving, the angle is wrong, the path is impossible, and the moon's diameter is wrong.
Satellite, minus 10. Twilight. I feel the moon pulling me away.
We all know that the sun and the moon both rise in the east and set in the west. In your flat earth, what you see is what you get. The sun and the moon are moving clockwise from east to west. As you know, in our flat earth, if you are facing north, wherever you are, your left is the west and your right is the east. Therefore, if you fly straight from west to east, you will come back to your starting point. And so do the sun and the moon. The other fact is, if a source of light moving in one direction passes an object, the shadow will always move in opposite direction. So, as the sun and the moon are moving from east to west, and the sun passes the moon, the shadow is moving in opposite direction, from west to east, exactly like reality. Because in our flat earth, what you see is what you get. Now, in the globe model, in order to make the sun and the moon rise in the east, set in the west, they have to make the globe model rotate from west to east. In this way, the east side of the earth encounters the sun earlier than the west side of the earth. Most of the time, the globe model can accommodate almost everything from flat earth reality, projected in different shapes, different sizes, different distances, and different speeds. It's only mathematical assumptions. They calculated one by one, gradually and individually within thousands of years. It's all started 2,300 years ago, when Aristarchus calculated the size and distance of the moon using eclipses, based on assumptions if the earth was a ball. From that assumptions, he calculated the size and distance of the sun. Then people adapted his method and assumptions to calculate the whole solar system, then the whole galaxy, and so on and so on. Assumptions upon assumptions. But sometimes, when a bunch of mathematical assumptions mix together to explain rare cases like solar eclipse, they just don't add up. Many people argue whether the globe model can make eclipse shadow from west to east or not. Let's make it clear once and for all. If you put all the data on the table transparently, in a way that everyone can understand, measure, and verify themselves, the answer is yes and no. Yes if and but no. Now the yes if first. Yes, eclipse shadow on the globe model can move from west to east only if Moon's orbital speed is faster than Earth's rotation speed. In heliocentric model, the Moon's orbital speed is twice as fast as the Earth's rotation speed. With this paradigm, for sure, the shadow will move from west to east. Let's make a model to make it easier to understand. The distance is not to scale. The moon should be 30 Earth diameter away. If the Earth rotates 1,670 kilometers in 1 hour to your right, and the moon orbits 3,683 kilometers to your right too, then you draw a straight line from moon's diameter to the Earth. You will see the moon's line is farther than the Earth's line. But of course, 3,683 kilometers is farther than 1,670 kilometers. You don't even need a model to understand. This is called linear speed. In this way, the eclipse shadow moves from west to east because the moon is faster than the Earth. It's mathematically correct based on that assumptions and paradigm. But there's a big problem. It defies natural fact. If the moon is faster than the Earth's rotation, you would see the moon is setting to the east, the opposite of reality. Let's use mooncalc.org to make it easier. Find a place that has 90-degree elevation of the moon. Imagine the Earth is moving 1,670 kilometers per hour, west to east to your right, and the moon is moving 3,683 kilometers per hour to the same direction. Within 1 hour, you would see the moon is more to your right, because it's faster and travels more distance than the Earth, right? Wrong. See what happens if you add time for 1 hour. Ooh, the moon is going to your left, because the Earth is rotating faster. How come? 1,670 kilometers per hour travels faster than 3,683 kilometers per hour. It's because the distance traveled by the moon is 60 times longer than Earth's circumference. Now we're talking about the other kind of speed, the angular speed. Take bicycle wheel as an example of angular speed. The farthest part from the axis, the tire is moving faster than the axis, but actually it's the same angular speed. The farther from the axis, the faster it moves, but actually the same angular speed. Now, the Earth is rotating 360 degrees in 24 hours. It means 15 degrees per hour. If the Earth is moving 15 degrees counterclockwise to your right, and according to heliocentrism, the Sun is at rest, then you will see the Sun appears to be setting 15 degrees to your left. That's the angular speed of the Sun due to Earth's rotation. Okay? While the Moon is orbiting the Earth 360 degrees in 29.5 days. Some people like to say 27.3 days, sidereal month, the Moon's position with respect to the stars. It's irrelevant, for we are counting the Moon's position with respect to the Earth, nothing to do with the stars. So we have to use synodic month, average 29.5 days. The angular speed of Moon's orbit is 1 per 24 hours divided by 29.5 days times 360 degrees equals to 0.51 degree per hour. That means when the Earth in an hour is rotating 15 degrees to your right, making the Sun appears to be setting to your left 15 degrees, the Moon is moving 0.51 degree to your right. That makes the Moon appears to be slower than the Earth's rotation. Let's go back to mooncalc.org. The Moon's elevation angle is 90 degrees. Then change the time to 1 hour later. Now you see the elevation is subtracted to 75.81 degree. 75 degree because the Earth is rotating 15 degree from previous 90 degree elevation. 0.81 degree is the Moon's traveling distance in 1 hour. Mooncalc is using different moon distance on that day. Or perhaps they're using sidereal month. It's all mathematical assumptions. They don't even look to the sky. The Moon moves 0.5 degree against the Earth moves 15 degrees per hour. With these assumptions and paradigm, for sure, the eclipse shadow moves from east to west, the opposite of reality. So which one applies to the Moon and the Earth's speeds that creates eclipse shadow? Linear speed or angular speed? They will say it's the linear speed that matters.
The Moon is orbiting about twice as fast as the Earth is spinning. So if we're looking down on the Earth and we're at the Moon, we see the Earth spinning, but the Moon is moving faster.
Wrong. Even if you're at the Moon, in 1 hour, you would see the Earth is setting 0.51 degree to your left, while it's rotating 15 degrees to your right. Even if you're looking from the Moon, the Earth's rotation is still faster. That means eclipse shadow in the globe model goes from east to west, the opposite of reality. Perhaps other people would say, oh, the Moon is slower than the Earth, but the shadow moves faster. That makes the shadow moves from west to east. Well, this sounds plausible in theory, but if you put the data, it's not correct. The Sun is 400 times bigger than the Moon. The Moon's traveling distance for 5 hours is just like a dot to the heliocentric Sun. If the Moon moves in 5 hours, 18,415 kilometers, it only makes 0.0069899959 degree difference. If the Moon moves 18,415 kilometers to the right side of the Sun, the shadow's distance on Earth is 18,460 kilometers, almost the same with the distance traveled by the Moon. Science says eclipse shadow moves at the same speed with the Moon, and the eclipse shadow path is the same length with the distance traveled by the Moon. So, if someone says the Moon is slower than the Earth but the shadow moves faster to make shadow from west to east, it's debunked by their own science. Another possibility, other people would say the Earth is also orbiting the Sun. That makes the shadow moves from west to east. Again, a plausible theory if you don't do the math. How come the Earth that's rotating 1,670 kilometers to your right and the moon is 384,000 kilometers away, orbiting the Earth at 3,683 kilometers per hour, and the Sun is 149.6 million kilometers from the Earth, while the Earth is orbiting the Sun at 110,000 kilometers per hour. It's almost 100 times faster than the speed of sound. Plus, the Sun is also moving at 72,000 kilometers per hour, almost 60 times faster than the speed of sound, can create eclipse shadow 18,415 kilometers on Earth within 5 hours. Do the math, do it yourself. They never include the Earth's orbit in calculating eclipses because they assume the moon is always attached with the Earth wherever it goes. In most solar system animations that you usually see, the Sun is at rest. This is heliocentric. The Sun is the center of the universe. But later, they knew it's impossible. They say the Sun is also moving at 72,000 kilometers per hour across the space. Another mathematical assumption on paper without experiment. They never put them all together when calculating eclipses. This is very important information. Most people think that NASA can predict eclipses accurately, that they have very advanced knowledge. Therefore, it proves that heliocentric is true. Unfortunately, that's not the case. All eclipse predictions provided by NASA, including this 5 millennial, 5,000 years of eclipses, are using solar cycle invented by ancient Babylonians thousands of years ago. Both solar and lunar eclipses are so predictable because they always repeat in a cycle of 18 years, 11 days and 8 hours. It's called solar cycle and it has nothing to do with heliocentric. Ancient Babylonians believed the Earth is flat, the Sun and the Moon are revolving around the Earth, and so do the stars and other celestial bodies. They didn't calculate the distances, sizes and speeds based on false assumptions and speculations like heliocentric teachings. They simply observed the sky and took whatever it is. With a paradigm, they can predict eclipses accurately. Such predictions are impossible to be done using heliocentric model. In its 5 millennium catalog of solar and lunar eclipses, NASA wrote that all eclipse calculations are by Fred Espenach, a retired NASA's employee. NASA never calculated and predicted eclipses using heliocentric model. They simply hired the best Saros researcher, their retired employee, Fred Espenach, to calculate and predict eclipses using ancient Babylonians method that has nothing to do with heliocentric. NASA even wrote that Fred Espenach is responsible for the accuracy of those 5,000 years catalog of eclipses. For thousands of years, some astronomers collected eclipse cycle all around the world based on Saros cycle. They have started to do this long time before NASA was established in 1958. Astronomers like Fred Espenach simply collected eclipse database from other local astronomers all around the world. As you see in this table, it's made by other astronomer G. Vandenberg in 1955. That's what Fred Espenach did. He is a very good Saros researcher. Why would NASA need Saros cycle if they can calculate eclipses using heliocentric math? Obviously, because they can't. A bunch of mathematical assumptions, when combined together to calculate eclipses, they just don't add up. There's an interesting review from Matt Parker from Stand Up Math's channel. He's the only person who got prestigious title as London Mathematical Society Popular Lecturer, a very smart and articulative mathematician. Here's what he said about predicting eclipses using heliocentric math.
And so I'm going to show you the mathematics behind how we can predict when they're going to happen. We can do the calculations on the elliptical orbit of the moon as the Earth goes around the sun, and we can calculate how often the moon goes between the sun and the Earth. Unfortunately, it's not that simple. It is a wonder we have eclipses at all. But then, out of all this chaos, another cosmic coincidence steps forward to save the day. It's called the Saros cycle, and it allows us to predict when eclipses are going to happen in the reasonably near future.
Some thickheads still don't understand why NASA uses Saros cycle to predict eclipses. They say there are a lot of software predicting eclipses using heliocentric math. You can download free software like Stellario. It can predict eclipses. Well, if a free software can predict eclipses with heliocentric model, then why NASA, with $19 billion budget per year, can predict eclipses using heliocentric model? Which one makes more sense to you? All astronomy software are using eclipse database from NASA. It's not the other way around. After NASA published this 5 millennium catalog of solar and lunar eclipses, people use the database to make animation using whatever model they want. Just put one eclipse time to another. The software will automatically adjust to make those two eclipses happen as programmed. It's not the other way around. After you get eclipse database, you can make animation with square Earth if you like. You can put whatever distance, whatever size. The software will adjust in accordance to the eclipse dates. Some thickheads even try to run from reality by saying NASA provides a software in its website to predict eclipses. Look at this database used by NASA. 5,000 years catalog of solar eclipse database. You can choose what year, what eclipse type, duration, and oops, it's Saros cycle, not heliocentric math. This is the 3D movement of their heliocentric model. The sizes, distances, and speeds are not to scale. This is just to make you have an idea of the true heliocentric concept. The question is, how could NASA 48 years ago kept up with the Earth's orbital speed, almost 100 times faster than the speed of sound, and also kept up with the sun speed across the space at almost 60 times faster than the speed of sound? That's just warming up. In the next section, you will see scientific facts based on official data that eclipse in the globe model is a real fantasy. Scientific data that everybody can verify and do experiment themselves as referred to as scientific method. With this official data, you will get the undebunkable result that eclipses completely fail to work on the globe model. The data is always there all the time. You just didn't realize what it means.
I'm trying to free your mind, Neo. But I can only show you the door. You're the one that has to walk through it.
Stay tuned. Let's take a look at their official data taken from NASA's website, the Great American Eclipse Path. NASA also provides excellent link for more details. This is a picture that destroys globe model if you understand what it means. First, let's find out the eclipse duration that began at the far west and ended at the far east. We're not looking for eclipse beginning and ending in one location, as there are so many locations. What we're looking is the beginning and ending of the whole eclipse happened on that day. You just click the path and they give you complete information. See the start of partial eclipse, it's 1555 UTC. Then the end of partial eclipse, 2055 UTC. Now we have credible data that total eclipse duration is 5 hours. Secondly, how far is that eclipse length? Take a look at the longitude. It started at 171.2 degree west and ended at 27.4 degree west. The eclipse length longitude is 143.7 degrees. Do you realize how far is 143.7 degrees in a globe? Let's copy-paste some coordinates from the eclipse site to Google Maps to measure the approximate distance. It's around 40,000 kilometers. Now, apply it to the globe map. See, the eclipse distance, 143.7 degrees, is already 40% of the Earth's circumference. So, within 5 hours of eclipse, out of 24 hours a day, or around 20% of the day, somehow, miraculously, the shadow length covers 40% of the globe. Let's make a scale model now to understand that the eclipse length of 143.7 degrees is mathematically and geometrically impossible. We've made scale model of the eclipse using AutoCAD. In this video, I'm collaborating with many people from Flat Earth 101 community. You have seen the work of Najwa and Angoraji specially made for you. For this AutoCAD, I want to make it as precise as possible, so I collaborate with people from the community again, this time with Tejo. He is a successful architect who is very familiar with AutoCAD. And he's not alone. People in his office also helped us to make this model. They are flat earthers too. These are the assumptions I took from mainstream science database. We made this model based on that official data at that particular date and that particular spot as referred by NASA. Let's start with the Earth. Of course we can make it pretty with 3D Earth, but that's not our objective now. It's not about beauty, it's about precision. The Earth's radius and diameter are precise according to heliocentric data. These 5 lines represent the Earth's rotation for 5 hours, the eclipse duration. Each line represents 15 degrees. 5 lines equal to 75 degrees. The 0 point represents the first second of the eclipse. The Earth rotates anticlockwise from west to east. So if you are standing over here at 0 point, in 5 hours you will be over there. Now let's go to the moon. It's 30 Earth diameters away. The Earth is a small circle over here and the moon is over there. Let's zoom in. This is the moon at 0 point when the first second of partial eclipse started. These 5 moons represent its movements every hour. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 hours. This is the moon's radius and diameter according to standard heliocentric. This is the moon's traveling distance every hour. Within 5 hours, it travels 18,415 kilometers. That's the linear speed. But the orbit is so big, 29.5 days, and 5 hours means almost nothing. So if you draw a line from the moon's axis to the Earth's axis, this 18,415 kilometers is only 2.55 degrees angular speed on Earth. It's hard to see at its true scale. Let's split it into 2 screens, the moon on your left side, the Earth on your right side. This is the 0 point when the first partial eclipse happened. The line goes to 0 point on Earth. In 5 hours, the moon will be over there. If you're standing on Earth over here, 5 hours later, you will rotate from west to east and you'll be over here. You will see the moon is setting to the west due to Earth's rotation. Exactly like you've seen at mooncalc, you add time, the moon goes to the west. And the elevation angle is subtracted from 90 degree to around 75 degree in 1 hour. For 5 hours, it would be around 18 degree near the horizon, almost setting. This is the proof that it's the angular speed that applies. What about the linear speed? After 5 hours, the moon's position is over here. We draw straight linear lines from the moon. Where do the lines fall on Earth? Man, it's far outside the Earth. Theoretically, linear speed is wrong. After 5 hours, you will see the moon is setting to the west. In reality, you don't see the moon is over here, like it's setting to your east. The moon is over there, near the horizon, setting in the west. The funny thing is, even though the moon is over here, setting in the east, the shadow will fall outside the Earth. If you use angular speed, eclipse shadow moves from east to west, the opposite of reality. If you're using linear speed, the moon sets in the east, and the shadow falls outside the Earth after a few hours. Any which way, they're wrong. It really doesn't work on the globe model. What about the shadow speed? We've been through this. Their own science says the eclipse shadow speed is the same as the moon speed itself. Look once again at their eclipse shadow speed. The shadow is never faster than the moon speed. The shadow knows. Poor globe model. Let's be generous to them. Give the globe model a generous discount. Let's start not from 90 degree elevation, but instead from 0 degree like we have solar eclipse at 6 a.m. in the morning. You can't even see the sun at horizon level. Then you have 5 hours eclipse. And still, if using linear speed, the shadow goes outside the Earth. Do you know why it fails? Because you can't get 5 hours eclipse on the globe model. The moon would travel 18,415 kilometers, while the Earth's diameter is only 12,742 kilometers. That would make the moon half Earth outside the Earth. This is real fantasy, folks. Congratulations. Based on their official data, you just found a fatal error on the globe model. Now let's see the eclipse movement with 3D model. You can use solar system scope. It's supposed to be correct according to heliocentric model. The time, speeds, directions, and eclipse duration are to scale. Only the sizes are not to scale. They make them bigger to make it easier for you to see the movements. Set your time to August 21st, 2017 at 3:55 p.m. UTC. We'll run it for 5 hours, scaled to about 5 seconds. It's gonna be quick, but we can replay it. The time will be 3:55 p.m. to 8:55 p.m. Please focus on the Earth's rotation speed and direction, also the Moon's orbital speed and direction. See which one is faster. Ready? Go! You see that the Earth's rotation is faster. Let's zoom in. The Moon is almost like not moving. That means they're using angular speed. The Earth rotating at 15 degrees per hour. The Moon's traveling at 0.51 degrees per hour. With this angular speed, to which direction the shadow goes? Because the Earth is spinning faster to the east, the Moon's shadow goes the opposite direction, from east to west. Exactly like Najwa has shown you. Only this 3D animation is using true scale of speeds according to heliocentrism. But don't trust CGI cartoons. Let's make a real-life model now. This time, I collaborate with Pupu. He's a technical engineer and a very diligent researcher. He made our previous AutoCAD scale model into real-life model. This is the Earth and the Moon's model to scale. This is the Moon's traveling distance in 5 hours. And this is the Earth's rotation in 5 hours too. This is the Earth-Moon distance. You remember those angular lines. The Moon travels 18,415 kilometers, but it's only 2.55 degrees from the Earth's axis. That's the true sizes, distances, and speeds according to heliocentric model. Assisted by Damar as cameraman, we put 3 cameras on the model. First one is above the Earth to see the Earth's rotation angles. Second camera is above the Moon to see the Moon's traveling distance and angles. Third one is behind the Moon to see where the shadow falls in 5 hours time scale. Remember, we're not looking for the eclipse shadow size. The source of light with the scale should be 475 meters or almost half kilometers away, and the lamp diameter should be 4.36 meters. It's irrelevant for this purpose because we're just looking at the shadow's direction, not the shadow size. We start from the 0 point where the eclipse starts. You see the Earth is at 0 degree position and the Moon is also at 0 degree position. The shadow is slightly to the west of the Earth because the eclipse started at 15:55 UTC or 10:55 local time in the morning. If you stand on that shadow point on Earth, you would see the Moon is slightly to the east, where the Moon rises as appears on Earth. Now the Earth rotates for 15 degrees. The Moon is moving 3,683 kilometers, but only 0.51 degree from the Earth's axis. See where the shadow falls. Oops, it's not angular speed, but linear speed. This is a disaster for the globe model. Yes, it means the shadow moves from west to east, but it means the Moon is setting to the east, and within 3 hours, the shadow will go outside the Earth. Second hour. Third hour. You see the shadow already falls outside the Earth. Fourth hour. It's more than the Earth diameter. This is the fifth hour. The shadow goes half Earth outside the Earth. How can heliocentrism predict eclipses if the maths don't even add up for one eclipse? No wonder NASA still used ancient Babylonian solar cycle. Let's take a look at who are these Babylonians who invented solar cycle. Babylonians are descendants of Sumerian, the first modern human civilization 6,000 years ago, earlier than ancient Egypt. It's located in Mesopotamia, or modern-day Syria and Iraq, the birthplace of Abraham, the father of 3 religions, Hebrew, Christian, and Islam. It's the cradle of civilization. Their inventions and achievements are still used today. Astronomy, irrigation, architecture, mathematics, politics, code of law, urban planning, almost everything except internet and cable TV. They are very smart people. Their alphabets, cuneiform, consist of 400 characters, not 26 characters ABCD like us. Their numeral system is sexagesimal or base 60, not base 10 like us. Sexagesimal is very good for counting big numbers and small numbers, still used today for measuring time, angles, and geographic coordinates. They are the one who invented 360 degrees in a circle. Do you know why there are 660 degrees in a circle? is the average days of the Sun and the Moon circling the Earth in a year. The Sun is circling the Earth in 365.2425 days, and the Moon is circling the Earth in 354.3829 days. Add those numbers, you will get 719.61 days. So the average of lunar and solar days in a year is 359.8 days, rounding to 360 days. That's where the Babylonians got the idea of 360 degrees in a circle and got sexagesimal numeric system base 60. It's really natural science. They are the one who invented lunar calendar, synodic month, the real astronomical event. The beginning and ending of each month is based on moon phases, hence the name month. That's natural science. On the other hand, modern day solar calendar system is based on nothing. If you want to make solar calendar based on natural phenomena, the new year should be either summer June 22nd, autumn September 23rd, winter December 22nd, or spring March 21st. But solar calendar starts with January the 1st, which means nothing, and ends with December 31st, which also means nothing. It's not really solar calendar, and every date of the month has nothing to do with the moon. You're using a wrong calendar system. Yet, Babylonians were aware of solar cycle too, so they invented the so-called lunisolar calendar. Its lunar calendar consists of 12 months, the closest lunar cycle with solar cycle in a year. They are the one who invented 7 days in a week. They observed the stars are moving in the same directions and the same speed, except there are 7 sky objects that move differently. They call it the 7 wandering stars. Later, by the ancient Greeks, is called planets. That's the origin of the word planet. Planet is not a ball that living creature can live on it like you always see in CGI cartoons published by NASA. Planet is a wandering star, a star which has its own path and speed circling the Earth. Those 7 wandering stars, or 7 planets of the Earth, are the Sun, the Moon, Mars, Mercury, Jupiter, Venus, and Saturn. Then Babylonians devoted 7 days every week to honor those 7 wandering stars. The first day to honor the Sun, hence the name Sunday. Second day to honor the Moon, Monday. Third day is for Mars, or in Nordic is called Tyr, Tuesday. Fourth day for Mercury, Mercredi in French. In German and Dutch is called Odin or Woden, Wednesday. Fifth day for Jupiter, Jueves in Spanish, is Nordic god Thor, Thursday. Sixth day to honor Venus, Viernes in Spanish, is Nordic god of Frigg, Friday. The seventh day to honor Saturn, Saturday. That's the influence of Babylonian culture. We still use it until now. Babylonians are the ones who invented the concept of clock, the sundial. Then they divided a day by 12 hours daytime and 12 hours nighttime. Where did they get the number 12? Of course, it's the 12 zodiac constellations in a year, and it takes 12 lunar cycles or months for the sun to return to its original position. Like every other celestial body circling the Earth in a certain cycle, Babylonians observed that solar and lunar eclipses happen in a cycle of 18 years, 11 days and 8 hours. That's the only way to predict eclipses. Nothing to do with heliocentric speeds and distances. Babylonians were using lunar calendar. They knew that solar eclipses always happen in new moon and lunar eclipses always happen in full moon. They knew well that during solar eclipses, the moon's position is at the nearest point to the sun. Yet, they never thought it's the moon that eclipsing the sun. This is very interesting. Since kids, we've been told and educated in schools that solar eclipses are caused by the moon, and moon eclipses are caused by the ball Earth shadow. A theory without any single proof, but taught in schools like a fact. Babylonians, however, observed the sky much more often and more careful than us. They didn't have internet and cable TV or social media to chat. They had the luxury of time to live in harmony with nature. Why didn't they think it's the moon that eclipsing the sun? First, because they knew there are so many unseen celestial bodies in the sky. second, because they knew the moon is behind the sun. If the moon is in front of the sun, you would see the moon is getting close to the sun before eclipses, right? But you never see it. Let's use our logics here. Why can't you see the stars during daytime? Because the sun is too bright, right? And because the stars are behind the sun. There is no star between the sun and the earth, even according to heliocentrism. All stars are behind the sun. The sun is very bright at daytime, therefore you can't see the stars during daytime. But the moon is 400 times closer than the sun, according to heliocentrism. The moon is between the earth and the sun when it's new moon, and it's behind the earth when it's full moon. Sometimes you can see the moon very clear in the morning. So why can't you see the moon when it's new moon? Because the sun is too bright? Hell no. You can see every single object in front of the sun during daytime. You can see the clouds, airplanes, birds, etc. Sometimes you can see the moon in the sunlight. So why can't you see the moon when it's new moon? Because the moon is in unseen position? No, it's not correct either. Even in heliocentrism, the moon is near the sun during the new moon. So why you never see the moon when it's new moon? Because the moon is behind the sun at the time of the new moon. Third, Babylonians who invented solar cycle never thought the sun is eclipsed by the moon because they knew the moon's body can't eclipse the sun. Ancient people were aware of many unidentified celestial bodies that sometimes can be seen with naked eyes. Only a dark celestial body can eclipse the sun out of nowhere. Just like lunar eclipses are caused by other celestial bodies, so are solar eclipses. Babylonians called it the planet of crossing, planet X, dark sun if you will. And so do every cultures in the world. In India, they call it Rahu and Ketu. In Java, Indonesia, they call it Batara Kala. Not because ancient people are stupid, but because they really use their senses. Their senses told them it's not the moon eclipsing the sun, it's a dark sky object that can absorb light. And it's not the Earth's shadow that eclipsed the moon either. It's a similar dark sky object. And you know what? They didn't just make theories. They calculated the cycle of these dark objects so accurate we still use today, solar cycle. On the other hand, you don't use your own eyes and your own senses. You just follow what NASA told you. This is just to open your mind. The world is not like they told you. There are so many anomalies in eclipses. You can study the shadow using real-life scale model. I've tried with Pupum. We're using real sunlight, no question about brightness, lumens, and so on. But don't do it in open air, cause the bigger the light, the smaller the shadow. In total solar eclipses, the source of light should be the same with the object that eclipses it. Using scale model, for a 10 centimeters Earth, you have to use a 2.92 meters of pipe. This is very important to make the source of light to scale. The result is quite devastating. The shadow is about 16 times bigger than it should be. In reality, eclipse shadow size is about 70 miles or around 100 kilometers. They make it in CGI cartoons as if a 3,474 kilometers of moon from 384,000 kilometers distance can make a 100 kilometers of shadow. So they make CGI cartoons with shadow shaped like a pencil. It doesn't exist in reality. With real-life scale model, the shadow is actually 1,000 miles or 1,600 kilometers. With the globe model, eclipse shadow would cover the whole Kalimantan Island. Unbelievable! With the globe model to scale, eclipse shadow would be so big that can cover Portugal, Spain, and France at once. This is a disaster for the globe model. All your life, you only see eclipses of fantasy. On the other hand, in the flat Earth model, the diameters of the Sun, the Moon, or whatever object eclipsing the Sun is about 32 miles or around 60 kilometers. If you don't like mathematics, you can use AutoCAD, a neutral software for professionals. You can verify by yourself from 5,000 km height. They will make shadow size exactly like reality. 105.7 kilometers like the real eclipse shadow in Idaho Falls. Look at the eclipse shadow speed. Umbra velocity is 1,874 miles per hour or 3,015 kilometers per hour. Their science says eclipse shadow speed is the same as the moon speed because heliocentric sun is 400 times bigger than the moon. So 5 hours movement of the moon means nothing. Only makes 0.006989959 degree difference. If you like mathematics, you can verify yourself. Therefore, they say that the eclipse shadow moves at the same speed as the moon itself. It's mathematically correct with that assumptions, but it doesn't fit with reality. The moon travels at 3,683 kilometers, making shadow on Earth that spins at 1,670 kilometers, both to the same direction from west to east. The shadow should move at 2,013 kilometers per hour. But look at the reality. It moves at 3,015 kilometers per hour. It doesn't add up. You can also study the eclipse pattern. How can the Earth, the Sun, and the Moon creating such zigzag pattern? Look carefully. The path even goes slightly below Earth curvature. As NASA wrote in its official data, is a geocentric coordinate. What does it mean? Geocentric coordinate is geographic coordinate system in which the Earth is modeled as a sphere or spheroid in right-handed XYZ like 3D in AutoCAD. That means originally the coordinate is in flat map, then projected into the Earth globe model. In fact, all globe maps that you've seen in your entire life is a geocentric coordinate or a projection from a flat map to a globe map. Last but certainly not least is the one that we have discussed. Most people don't notice that the eclipse duration was 5 hours and don't realize what it means. This is the reason why I make this episode in English, to share that this kind of eclipse is mathematically and geometrically impossible on the globe model. Please don't use 3D animation model. You can make Superman spinning the Earth backward with CGI. Please use real-life scale model. The shadow will go outside the globe after 3 hours. You can take it from here and bring it to another level. I heard some people say, why proving the globe model is wrong? Why not proving the flat Earth model is right? Well, we're not supposed to make theories. It's not even our task. Before you start asking questions about flat Earth, you have to understand what's wrong with the globe model first. Like wise men say, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But the bigger question is, why is it important to you? If we're discussing about theories, it's okay to be wrong. It's okay to have differences. It won't cost you money if flat Earth is wrong. On personal level, it doesn't matter whether you believe the Earth is square or triangle. It only matters in social level.
There will be blood in the water cold.
Because if heliocentric model is wrong, that means there are $1 trillion scandal in the last 60 years.
They bust hard on our shoulders.
That means space programs and satellites are hoax. Your communication costs should not be this high. Your national debt should not be that high. Most people don't realize or don't want to realize about their national debts. The world owes $68.7 trillion. Do you know how much money in circulation in the whole world?
This is our time.
You have to look at the physical currency, the most liquid asset class of which all central banks pay attention. It's only $7.6 trillion. The world owes $68.7 trillion while the world only has $7.6 trillion. It's a debt you can never pay, ever. To whom the world owes that much? 99% people in the world owes to the 1% population, the global elites. If you still don't believe the global elites exist, you better listen to the Minister of Finance of Indonesia, a very smart and charming lady, former managing director of the World Bank Group.
Kalau di dunia lebih timpang lagi, 1% orang kaya di dunia menguasai 90% aset dunia itu.
How come a very small group of people can make the others owe to them without even knowing it? Because they have rigged the systems to benefit themselves at the expense of most people on Earth.
The greatest trick the devil ever pulled was convincing the world he didn't exist.
Central banks in the US and Europe are privately owned corporations with the monopoly on creating money, but with no accountability. Those financial elites control all central banks in the world through the World Bank, IMF, and their elite financial agents. The system is quite simple. All countries in the world have to face budget deficits every year. Then all governments have to issue bonds. Then the financial elites finance the bonds by creating money from thin air, because they have a monopoly on creating money. Then all governments collect taxes from the people to pay the interest. Next year, all governments face deficit again, and the never-ending cycle continues. The global elites have to create deficits in all national budgets. The biggest four deficit makers are wars, terrorism, financial crisis bailouts, and space program hoax, including satellite hoax. Those are the parasites that eat your stomach from the inside. That's what we have to pay from your taxes. Globe Earth hoax is the weakest link in their systems. You hear it right, the whole system will collapse. Meanwhile, Flat Earth Awakening gets the momentum all over the world. Indonesia is still the #1 Flat Earth topic in the world, according to Google Trends. People gather by themselves and made the Flat Earth 101 community. It's from the grassroots, bottom up. I didn't create them.
Legends never die.
Imagine there's no heaven.
On September 23rd, when the sun has its culmination at the equator in Pontianak, Indonesia, Flat Earth 101 community in all 34 provinces made a national movement to measure the sun distance in different locations. People from neighboring countries, Singapore, Malaysia, and Australia also participated in this event.
Imagine all the people living for today.
The result of this research has been presented in scientific journal format.
It isn't hard to do.